Welcome to Healing and Growing with me, your host, Peter Gold, PhD. Join me and renowned teachers, healers, and practitioners as we explore the realms of healing and growth. If you're seeking a better way in life or just curious about new ways to expand and enrich your life, you have come to the right place. Welcome to Healing and Growing with Peter Gold, PhD. Bo DePauli is here. He is a third-generation entrepreneur, business owner, investor, and fund manager. In 2005, he began working for ACMS Group, an industrial construction company whose operations included project management, construction management, and facility maintenance. During his time there, Bo helped grow ACMS Group from a $3 million business to a $30 million business. Then after leaving ACMS, he founded D3 Enterprises in 2014, a holding company for various businesses that he owns. Additionally, he established D3 Capital, an investment and capital raising company focused on growing a diverse portfolio of real estate assets, particularly multifamily properties. He has also ventured into the fitness sector, successfully turning around 2 failing gym chains within a year of acquiring them. And I wanted to have Bo on to talk about money, his relationship to it, and what he has learned in business and in the fitness industry related to healing, health, wellness, and growth. I am pleased to have Bo DePauli here. Welcome.
Peter, dude, you really did your homework, man.
Hey, I did my best.
That was excellent.
Yeah,
I'm going to have you write my obituary, okay?
Well, let's see. That's a long way from now, you know?
Yeah.
But if I'm available, I'm open to it.
Okay. All right.
So we met through a business marketing group out of San Diego and quickly realized that we both were born and raised in the Chicago area. You're still there now. I live currently in Portland, Oregon. So I think that was a nice thing. We kind of hit it off that way.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start and just kind of jump right in and ask you, how would you, I want to talk about money, because a lot of my audience is like interested in personal development, personal growth, kind of the spiritual aspects of things. But money is one of those areas that I think sometimes can get neglected or be seen as something that is kind of less than holy. But everyone is in the money game. Everyone is in business for themselves. So I really wanted to hear from a very experienced business person, entrepreneur, fund manager, all the things you do, and just get your insight on money, among other things. But just to start off, how would you, like, when you think about money and your relationship to money, what comes up for you?
Oh, man. It's kind of a twofold mindset, right? It's there's never enough of it, but there's an abundance of it. And what I mean by there's never enough of it is because I'm doing so many different things. I want to do so many different things. There's still more things that I want to do. Getting access to it is a challenge, but there's a lot of it out there, right? So I think having the mindset of, I think a lot of people live in scarcity mindset, and that is a very, very hard mindset to overcome. Because that could come all the way back to, your parents, how your parents raised you, right? If they were always, telling you no on buying things, or, if you live poorly or whatever that is, lower middle class, lower income, it's easy to develop that scarcity mindset, right? Because you just don't think that it's out there, but it really is out there. You've just got to hustle for it, So I think that my mindset around money is it's all about the hustle, really.
And I've always heard, like, the hardest part about money is getting it. Once you have some money, it's kind of like power. The more you have, the easier it is to get more of it. So because if you've got $100 million, then you can easily put it in something very safe and make a 5% return and live very comfortably, extremely comfortably on $5 million.
Yeah.
Or whatever the numbers are.
But if you talk to anybody that has 100 million, they're trying to get to $1 billion. And the billionaires are trying to get to the 100 billion, right? So even the people that are very wealthy, they always want more. And it's not because they're trying to like hoard it, but it's because they're trying to create more opportunities with those dollars, right? It's whether it's, okay, like look at Elon Musk, right? Elon, he started PayPal, sold PayPal, and then built Tesla, and then built SpaceX, and then built the Boring Company. So it's not like he's out there trying to hoard all of these billions that he has. He's trying to take those billions and improve things in the world. And I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs. They're trying to. I mean, you can't be successful unless you're not trying to solve a problem, right? Apple remember in the 90s, Apple was basically ready for bankruptcy. And then when they brought Steve Jobs back, remember they fired Steve Jobs, they brought Steve Jobs back. And when they brought Steve Jobs back, his big thing was, we need to make a product that everybody, it's art, but it's everybody wants, right? And so they went through these iterations, right? They built the Mac, they improved the Mac, their Mac sales went up. And then when they built the iPod, right, they're solving problems as they go along. iPod turned into the iPhone solved a ton of problems. It's, I don't know if you've seen that meme that goes around where they show what a typical person's desk looked like from the 70s, right? Where you had an Addy machine, you had notepads, you had all of these things on your desk. And now everything since the iPhone has been consolidated to in your hands, right? Yeah. Or on your laptop. Like you can do all of that stuff on one device. So every entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, is solving problems and making life easier for their consumers.
So you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, third generation. You come from, your dad was an entrepreneur, I'm guessing?
Yeah, my grandfather was too. My grandfather didn't even graduate high school. And he started a mechanical contracting company. He got his, he started in the trades. He went through the plumber's apprenticeship, and then he, started his own business, doing plumbing, and then grew it into other mechanical stuff, HVAC and all that stuff, and then. He grew it to the largest mechanical contractor in this area at the time, which was in the 50s and 60s. And then my dad has a similar story, right, where he went through the plumber's apprenticeship, and then, he worked under my grandfather for many years, and then he went out on his own and started ACMS. And then I went to college, didn't want to. I barely graduated high school. And then I got laid off from my job after college. I was working at AT&T. I got laid off. And then my dad's like, well, hey, I need some help. And then I went to work for him, learned under him, and then I left him and I started my own business. So that's kind of the motto behind D3, right? Is 3 is actually my favorite number, and I'm third generation entrepreneur, and D stands for DePaoli, our last name. And so that's the evolution of D3 Enterprises.
That's really cool. So as a kid, what were you taught about money?
Save. Which I think that comes from scarcity mindset, right? Save and invest, right? I think that my dad taught me save and invest. I can remember when I graduated high school, the money that I got from my open house, I don't remember what it was. It was a couple $1,000 that I had accrued from people gifting me money from graduating high school. I took that money and I put it in the stock market. And that was And prior to that, in high school, I had actually, I had put like $100 on a stock for this retail store that was growing pretty rapidly. And so that was kind of my first taste of investment. I remember like the stock split like 2 or 3 times, and my $100 turned into like, I don't know, $1,000 or something like that over a few years. But yeah, I think, my parents were big on saving, investing.
So did they teach you what to invest in and how to invest? Did they talk to you about any of that?
No, I kind of did that on my own. I mean, outside of that retail store stock that I bought, that was kind of the direction of my mom and my dad.
How did you, so they told you about this stock?
Yeah, they told me about the stock, and I invested in with them. And then from there, like I said, when I took the money from my high school, I think I opened a TD Waterhouse account. And I remember I bought into two businesses. The first one was the company that sequenced the human genome back in the late 90s. So I invested in that company. That company skyrocketed, but I think I came in too late in the curve. I think I came towards the top because most stocks they'll ramp up and then they kind of either level off or then they'll come down and then level off, right? And so I invested in that one, and I invested in this company that developed a laser that could. The article that I read about them took the laser and they were able to literally write a sentence on a human hair with this laser. That's how pinpoint this laser was. So I invested into that, but I ended up losing all the money because I bought it too late.
How did you find out about that laser stock?
I was a dork and I liked reading Scientific America.
So you read about it in Scientific America and you're like, oh, that sounds like a good company to invest in, and you bought the stock?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a nerd. I still to this day, I love science. Anything like science, quantum mechanics, any of that stuff, I find it fascinating. So I would read, comic books, and I would read Scientific America as a kid.
Interesting. So you and I think I've heard you say somewhere else that like you really like numbers. You're a numbers guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never was as a kid though. That's what's crazy.
Okay.
Growing up, it's not like I excelled in any subject. I didn't excel in math at all. I mean, I struggled through math in high school a lot. But the difference is that when you get into the real world and you start using numbers, like accounting numbers, accounting numbers is much different than math numbers, right? And I like accounting numbers. I like metrics on your return of something. I like looking at ROI. I like looking at statistics against business operations. Like, I don't know, what's an example of like your debt service coverage ratio, right? That's kind of a stat that you need to look out for. So those kind of things I really like, and those I do well with.
And so where do you track that stuff? Is that in like QuickBooks or on Excel, or where do you?
Mostly Excel. Yeah, mostly Excel. Although I'm trying to get it where it's automated on a dashboard using, like Power BI or something like that. You can kind of dump all that data into a database and have the database create algorithms based off the data.
Yeah. So it's more like live numbers.
It's more live. Yeah. Yeah.
So you track all of your businesses pretty granularly, pretty specifically.
Yeah, I'm very OCD with that stuff. Yeah, I look at every week I sit down with my one business. So the gyms. Let's use the gyms as an example. I sit down with my office manager every week. We run through the numbers. We look at the P&L. We look at revenue. We look at expenses going out the door. We look at our reserve accounts. We look at metrics in terms of group class attendance. We look at personal training attendance. We look at all that stuff. On the other stuff, I'll sit down with my CFO twice a week and look at similar numbers. Where we actually sit down twice a week and go through cash flow. So we'll look at what are we billing, what's coming in, what are we collecting off the billing, what expenses are going out. We anticipate all of that out for the remainder of the year. So that was one of the first things that I put in place in all my businesses is a cash flow sheet. We always project out for the whole year. Now that's going to change throughout the year, but we at least want to know what direction is the company going? Where do we anticipate it going? And then we could build budgets off of that and see, based on our current cash flow and where we're projecting, what can we do? Can we pay down some debt? Can we do this? Can we do that? That helps us make some more decisions in the business.
So you're always monitoring like how much you paying for your debt, how much money you bringing in. You want to keep it close. You don't want to have cash sitting around if you're paying 10% on cash or whatever.
Exactly right. Yep. Exactly.
And that's a twice a week thing that you do
on the one business. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because time is money, and if it's only once a week, then you could be missing out on some of the differential between what you're paying for cash and the cash flow that you're accruing.
Yeah, 100%. And plus, things move very quickly. The larger the company, when I mean larger, I mean the more employees that you have, the more room for errors there are, because now you've got a lot of chefs in the kitchen that are making decisions on behalf of the business. So you need to know what is going on in that business so that you can recalculate, recalibrate, and make any adjustments that you need to do within that week.
And just for the listeners, like I'm thinking when you're talking about all your businesses, I'm thinking about me personally as a business and how I track my debt, my cash flow, my expenditures, etc. So shoot, what was it? So you track all of that because there's a lot going on.
Lots.
And you got the more money that you're managing, the more opportunity there is for I mean if you're managing $10 million, then if you're off 1%, that's $100,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, especially since some businesses have a very low margin, right? And so if you have a low margin business like construction is a very low margin business. 1% deviation off of your revenue in some cases could kill your margin. It could reduce your margin by 50%. 1% could kill your margin by 50% in some cases. So that's why I'm very diligent with cash flow and knowing what's going in and what's going out.
And so when you look at all of your professional business operations, looking at those numbers is kind of X-ray vision. It kind of tells you exactly what's going on, where it's going on, how it happened, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because then what we could do is if we start seeing some numbers that are a little wonky, now we'll start deep diving, right? And I'll just like an example. The one business, we were looking at cash flow, and what we were tracking was OpEx percentage against revenue. So whatever our operating expenses are compared to our total revenue, we're tracking that percentage every week or every month. And so when I took over the construction business, my biggest goal was to cut that in half. And we're almost there. And so we start looking at on a very high level, right? Here's our cash. Here's what was billed. Here's what's coming in. Here's what's going out. And when we start seeing that margin or that percentage start to shrink or increase, now we can deep dive. And so like last week we did that. We were looking and we're like, man, we're projecting right now that at the end of the year, our line of credit balance is not going to decrease that much. That's not a good sign, right? We always are trying to pay down our line of credit debt. And so now we started deep diving into OpEx. And then we started seeing like, okay, well, we're spending $45,000 a month in cell phones. Do we need to spend that much? Is there a bunch of cell phones out there that maybe these employees don't work for us anymore, and people just forgot to shut them off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're seeing year to date like a spend of $50,000 in Amazon. Like, who the hell is buying $50,000 worth of stuff from Amazon? What are those purchases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that gives us the opportunity to really deep dive and see what is actually going out. On top of that, that also is an opportunity for us to track our gross margin. So in construction, your gross margin is everything, right? If I get a job for $1 million, and here's some simple math. If we get a job for $1 million and the gross margin on that job, meaning the cost to do that job is $900,000, that means that's a 10% gross margin. But if your overhead is costing you 12% to run that company, that job, well, now you're losing money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we got to look at, okay, how can we improve the gross margin of our jobs? How can we improve the OpEx percentage, our overhead margin? And how can we increase gross margin and decrease OpEx so that, the company starts making money and doing those things? And that's very similar to what I do in the gym too, right? The gym it's smaller, right? We don't do the amount of revenue that we do in construction, but it's still the same principle. We're still looking at, here's the money coming in, here's the money going out. Why was our operating expenses 10% higher this month than it was last month? Or why is our revenue down 5% or up? Why is it up 5%? Did we sell more memberships? Did we do this? Did we do that? So it's always, because now you could take that information, you could say, okay, let's repeat that again next month. Let's do that same thing again. Like if we sold 5% more revenue, if we have 5% more revenue this month than we did the prior month, okay, let's try and repeat that for the next month. Now what we do is, okay, we pivot, because usually the other thing we do is we plan out our marketing, for the full year as well. And so maybe we're going to adjust our promo that we do for the next month, and so that we can try and keep that revenue going. So those are the things that you really look at when you're looking at your cash flow on a weekly basis.
How much of that transfers over to your personal life and your personal finances? Do you track those as much as you track your business?
Yes, but I would say not as much, only because I only have so much bandwidth. And really in my personal life, my in and out is very static. I don't spend a lot of money, right? I mean, I just don't. I don't spend. Most of my expenses is like my mortgage, my utilities, and all of that stuff. It's not like I use a lot of disposable income, because I pay myself very little, because I want that money to go back into the business to keep improving the business. So I pay myself not a lot.
So you said your construction revenue is it's on a different scale than the gym revenue and the gym businesses?
Yeah. Oh,
Construction is much bigger.
Much bigger. Yeah. It's 100x bigger.
And you also have D3. You have a fund within D3.
D3 Capital.
In D3 Capital that people can invest. Because I saw, part of D3 Capital's mission is helping others improve their yearly passive cash flow from real estate investments and building generational wealth.
Yeah.
What can you talk about how someone would do that? Is that just like, oh, they like what you're doing, they like what D3 sounds like, and they would rather invest in real estate than the stock market, so they'll cut you a check and then you take that money and you grow it for them?
Yeah, I mean, to me, real estate is the best investment that you could make. It's not as volatile as the stock market. You get a lot of tax benefits. A lot of times the return is better in real estate than you would get out of the stock market. I mean, you kind of use the example of, the 5% return, right? If you had the 5% return per year, okay, so let's just work it backwards. Our typical hold strategy on most investments is 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
So let's say there's a 5-year hold. if you invested those same dollars, let's say you're investing $100,000 into a real estate versus $100,000 into the stock market. At a 5% return in the stock market, that's 5% compounded every year. So that's 25 plus the compound, right? So let's say at most you're going to make, I don't know, 40% on your money. So you're 100,000 now worth 140,000 after 5 years. And then you got to pay tax on that, right? Now that same 100,000 in real estate is typically a 2x multiple in 5 years. So that 100,000 will become 200,000, and you get the depreciation on that asset. So you can depreciate real estate. So that means that 200,000 that you made, the majority of those dollars are non-taxable because you've got depreciation to bring down your taxable income on your K1 or on your tax return. So overall, the investment, in my opinion, with real estate is far superior than the stock market. You know, the people that win in the stock market are the people that's all they do. That's all they do is they day trade, they buy and sell. That's all they do. But the problem with that lifestyle is you have the tax implication behind that because you don't have any depreciation when it comes to stock investing.
And so for that $100,000 that you made on your $100,000 after 5 years, how much of that you said most of that could be depreciated? In other words, most of that $100,000, that additional $100,000 you made at the end of 5 years, how much tax are you paying on that versus, you know, the 40 grand that you made on the stock market investment?
It depends on the individual because everyone's tax returns are going to be different, right? If they've got other, you know, W-2 income and if they've got other investments besides the real estate. So it's really dependent on the individual. Yeah. But generally speaking, if you have the depreciation and you do a cost segregation as well, you know, on that $200,000, the actual income that would hit your tax return, I don't know, maybe 20,000 of it instead of 200,000.
Well,
but this depends.
But the 100,000 that you invested, you don't get taxed on that 100, right?
No, but the 100,000 that you made on top of it, maybe 20 grand of that would be taxable. Maybe it just again it depends on the individual.
Yeah. So the three things in money is making it, keeping it, and growing it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so you got to make it and then you got to keep it, meaning you have to find ways to avoid paying taxes on it as much as you can legally, obviously. And then growing that additional money, which you're going to pay taxes on still, but hopefully, you know, but you're not paying the same kind of taxes that you do when you earn the income.
Correct.
I always say the worst way to make money is to work for it because then you're getting taxed on earned income, which is the highest taxed money that you can generate.
Yes. Correct.
So I think that's something that a lot of people just don't even think about, don't even understand, that you're paying more tax on the money that you make when you work for it, as opposed to money that you make when you invest money.
Right. And the other side of that is when you're in business for yourself, you have way more options for tax write-offs, right? Simple things like your cell phone. You use your cell phone for business. That's a tax write-off. If you didn't have your own business, you can't write that off with your personal income tax.
Yeah.
If you got a car, if you got a lease on your car, that's a write-off in your business because you're using your car for business, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a tax accountant, but you gotta put that disclaimer out there, right? But yeah, I mean those little things like, you know, your internet is a business expense because you're using the internet for your business, so you could write that off. Those kind of things you can't write off on your personal income tax, right? So there's definitely advantages to being in business for yourself.
And especially if you have employees, because I'm in business for myself, but I can't really do a lot because I'm the only person working in the business.
Yeah, right.
If I had 2 or 3 employees, then it would change the calculus in terms of how much I pay
Correct.
myself, and does that make sense?
Correct.
Seems, and I'm sure you work with a lot of tax people, CPAs, people that tell you the best way to do things to save the most tax.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's
I
a third
always
of
get
the
in
game.
fights with my accountant about it. He's like, eventually you've got to pay tax. I go, I understand that. He's like, it's a good thing that you're paying tax because that means you're making money. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
Because now I can do much better with that money than the government can. Right.
Yeah.
Plus, here's the other thing too that I don't think a lot of people understand is, and I tell my accountant this all the time too, and he's always like, yeah, you're right. When you're in business for yourself, you have to submit your income statement, right, off of the business, your profit and loss. So you submit that profit and loss to your accountant, and he calculates that into your tax return. Now, if your profit and loss, your income statement says that you made $100,000 net for the year, right? Net is gross income less expenses, net income. If it says you made $100,000 net income for the year, that doesn't mean you have $100,000 of cash sitting around, because the way that an income statement works, it doesn't show the whole picture of the business, right? There's debt out there that doesn't hit your income statement. Debt doesn't hit the income statement. The interest does, but not the debt, right? Not the principal portion. There's other expenses that don't hit your income statement that you don't see on an income statement. So even though it says you made $100,000, maybe you only got $20,000 of cash, operating cash, right, sitting in your account. Well, now if it shows that you made $100,000 and that is taxed at whatever it is taxed at, 35%, let's say 30% even, right? That means you owe the government $30,000, but you only have $20,000 of cash.
Mm-hmm.
Now what do you do?
Right.
So this is where it comes into, that's where you have to reinvest into the business to get those tax benefits. So like last year, I bought all new equipment for the gym. So that equipment is a depreciation now. So that drives down my net income, my net taxable income to the government. I'm benefiting my business. I'm bringing new equipment into the gym, which is helping my members. It's making my members happy. On top of that, it's creating more jobs, right? Because you've got to have somebody to build all that equipment, right? You got to have somebody to design all that equipment. So with that offset, it's creating opportunities on the other side of the business, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how business works.
Mm-hmm. Do you take all of the depreciation? Like, so if you bought all this new equipment, you get to depreciate that. Can you depreciate that like a house or like a real estate investment, all like in 1 year? Or do you depreciate that over a certain number of years?
Well, when Trump was in office, he created that the bonus depreciation ruling. So I think it was like you got to depreciate 100% of what you spent in the first year, and then 80, and then it like every year thereafter it tiered down. So it depends on the year that you're making the purchase and what the IRS law is at the time. I mean,
you don't get to make that decision yourself. That's dependent on the tax law.
Yeah. And plus, if you've got any prior period losses that roll over, right, you can't write off more than what you made, right? So let's take the inverse. If last year I lost $100,000 and this year I made $50,000, well, I can only carry forward $50,000 of those losses. I can't carry forward 100,000 because there's not 50,000 additional dollars to be written off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that other 50 could be rolled forward, I believe, 2 years later, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's for the tax accounting experts, you know.
So if you bought $100,000 worth of equipment this year, and it was $100,000 of bonus depreciation, then you could write off all that money that you spent on the equipment.
Right.
Not write it off, but get that against your tax liability on the money that you owe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's business 101, man. That's what helps you grow, is those things. Because again, if I'm giving 40% of my profits to the government, right? That now reduces what I can put back into my business.
Mm-hmm.
That now reduces the opportunities that I can create further down the road. And I know a lot of people that are like, let's not forget, 60 to 65% of the total GDP in America comes from small businesses like myself. Okay. Not from these large corporations like Chase Bank and Amazon and all these others. They only make up 35 to 40%. The majority of our GDP comes from small businesses. If we don't take care of our small businesses, then they start hurting. And these are where owners start living paycheck to paycheck, which most of them do already. This is where owners don't want to reinvest their capital into their business because they're trying to survive. These are the things that move the needle forward for small business. Because a lot of people always say, especially it's been said for as long as I've been alive, is, you know, these billionaires need to be taxed more. They need to be taxed more. They need to be taxed more. You know, and then let's use Elon as another example, or even Jeff Bezos, right? They all say that these guys should be taxed more. Well, Elon is worth something like 200 billion, right? And Jeff Bezos is worth something like 300 billion. But that doesn't mean that they have $200 and $300 billion of cash sitting around. It's all of their assets that they have that's worth up to that much, which is mostly stock, right? They don't pay tax until they sell stock. So if Jeff Bezos is worth $300 billion, then that means he's got $300 billion worth of assets. That doesn't mean he has $300 billion of net income coming to him. That's why I think people misunderstand how this works. In order for these billionaires to pay tax, most of them have to sell assets to pay the tax.
Right.
So let's look at it on a smaller scale, because I actually talked about this on a recent podcast, because during the election, it was being floated around to tax unrealized gains.
Right.
Meaning, let's say you bought a house. This would apply across the board for billionaires and common folk. This would mean that if you bought a house for $300,000 and then the next year it was worth $400,000, well, now you now owe Uncle Sam 40% of that unrealized value in your assets. A stock is the same thing. If I bought a stock for $100 and now it's worth $200, I don't pay tax on that until I cash in on that stock. But the politicians wanted to put in a law that said that you would have to pay unrealized gain on that $100 that you made on the stock, even though you haven't cashed out on it. So let's look at the house example. Let's say you bought it for $300. Next year it's worth $400. You made $100,000 in unrealized value, right? You've paid tax on that. Let's say it's 25%. So you had to pay $25,000. Now let's say the next year the real estate market drops and falls, and people say, "Oh, that'll never happen." Oh, do you remember 2008 where everything dropped by 50%? Yeah. So now your $400,000 house is now worth $200,000, but you paid tax on 100,000 of that already. Are you going to be able to write that off? No. Right. Now you have to wait for that. And then you get hit again with unrealized gains as well when the real estate economy starts going back up. So this is why I always say, like, just because it shows they made X amount of dollars on their net income of their profit and loss. Doesn't mean that's what they have sitting around. Just because it shows that they're worth hundreds of $billions doesn't mean that's what they have lying around. You know?
But the interesting thing about that is they can take out a loan against the assets.
Mm-hmm.
So it benefits them,
Yeah.
but it doesn't hurt them.
Right.
They can use it as collateral, but they're not being taxed because they haven't sold yet.
Correct.
So that's, I guess, the advantage of having money, having assets.
It is.
If you are enjoying this podcast, please take a few seconds to follow, like, and share it on Spotify and/or Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to me, but more importantly, it will help other people interested in healing and growing find additional resources for themselves and others. I'll give you a second to do that right now. Good. Thank you so much. Now back to the show.
At the same time, a lot of those guys that do that, granted, they take a percentage of that and maybe they'll go out and buy themselves a yacht, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll buy some fancy cars. But the vast majority of those guys that do that, where they leverage their assets like that, they're going out and they're creating more opportunities. Maybe they're buying more real estate, or maybe they're starting up another division of their business, or maybe they're buying more businesses, right? Because in order for them to try and go and do that, they would have to sell that stock. So, okay, like let's take when Elon bought Twitter, for example. Granted, he got investors, but he had to sell some of his stock in order to go and buy Twitter. So he paid tax on the stock that he sold, and then he had to go and buy Twitter. He could have also just gone out and got a loan against that stock, like you're implying, and gone out and bought Twitter as well, right? So it's not all the time are these guys going out and doing all of these frivolous things. A lot of the times they're going to reinvest into new things and again, going back to improving society. Because if these things didn't happen, right, because then they say, well, Amazon has ruined the consumer market. That's why, you know, malls are collapsing and the retail stores are collapsing, which is 100% true because everyone could just buy online. But if people really, again, this goes back to, what's his name? The economist that it was big in capitalism. I'm trying to blank.
Milton Friedman?
Thank you. Milton Friedman. Thank you. Milton Friedman always says the market gets what the market wants. If people didn't want Amazon, then they wouldn't be buying from Amazon. But they want Amazon because they keep buying and keep growing. So it's kind of a catch-22. Yeah, you're hurting one side, but the other side is growing. But this is part of capitalism. It's part of the evolution of capitalism, right? If capitalism didn't evolve, then people would still be riding a horse.
Yeah, right. So thinking about taxes, I know Warren Buffett has been selling a lot of Apple shares, paying taxes on that because he thinks that taxes are going to go up. And historically, taxes are at kind of historic lows is what I understand. So now is a good time to take those losses, to pay those taxes because they may be going up. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think we should do what you implied. Using some debt to leverage against your assets to go out and buy more income producing assets, whether it's real estate, whether it's other businesses, or it's reinvesting into your business. Those are the things that you should be doing.
So you would do that rather than sell stock. I don't know why he would. Maybe he wants to buy. I don't know.
Listen, Warren Buffett is way smarter than me. I'm a peon. I mean, he knows what he's doing. At the same time, Warren Buffett also has billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. He's at a stage in his life. He's 94 years old. He's at a way different stage in his life than I am. You know,
what do you think is a good, like, if you could get money today for 10%, would you take that against your as collateral against your assets? Would you take that money and invest it, or is that too high of a rate for you?
Depends on the gross margin of what you're trying to do, right? It goes back to gross margin. If the money's costing you 10 before OpEx, that means that the gross margin of that business needs to probably be, in my opinion, 40 to 50%. because most businesses are, call it 20 to 50% in OpEx percentage, right?
Well, and that means 20 to 50% of their gross revenue goes to operating expenses.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And now you're adding another 10% on top of that for the cost of your money, right?
Are there those businesses out there that it would make sense to use 10% money?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I think it depends on what your strategy is. But yeah, I think so.
So going back to you and the difference between the size of your two primary businesses, it sounds like construction and gyms. How did you and why did you decide to get into gyms if there's so much theoretically more money to be made on the construction side?
Two reasons. I've always been a gym rat. And so the opportunity came about to buy these gyms. So I took a chance on myself. And that was one thing. I think that margin is relative to the business. If you run a gym really well, your margin could be much better than the margin in construction. Construction is much more of a volume-based business, depending on your construction business model. Meaning, if you're a niche one-man shop, like if you do plumbing, right? You could easily have a much higher margin than, say, a general contractor that contracts many different trades. Alex Ramosi says it all the time: is the money is in the niche businesses. You know, the further niche you can get down, the higher the margin and the higher the ticket item it could be.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
The smaller the audience, the more people are willing to pay for that type of service. So think of, like, what's a good example? Well, take, like, Gucci, right? There's only a very small percentage of the world population that's going to buy that product, right? Because it's a very expensive product. But that product's margin is through the roof, right? I mean, I think that's why the guy that owns all of those brands, like Chanel and Gucci or whatever, I think he surpassed Elon and Jeff Bezos in terms of gross wealth. Recently. So it's things like that. Smaller the audience, the more you could charge for it.
But you have to have something, like, if you have a small audience that's really into, like, a niche knickknack, you're not going to be able to charge a niche knickknack for your desk or something. It's got to be a niche market that has high value customers and people that are willing to pay a lot for that niche.
Yeah, 100%, for sure. But they're out there, right? I think that it goes back to scarcity mindset. Most people think that there's not a lot of people out there like that. But I think people forget how much money is actually in the world, right? Much, much more money than people could even fathom. So it's out there.
It wants to grow.
Sure.
It doesn't want to just sit around in a bank account making 2 or 3 or 5%. It wants smart money wants to be deployed somewhere to increase to increase.
Yeah. That's the whole methodology behind private equity. Private equity will go out and they pool a bunch of money together to go out and buy businesses that they know that they could rinse and repeat over and over and over again. Like a perfect example. There's this brand of gyms down in Texas that I've been following, and their model is amazing, right? But it's a very niche model. It's not a model that's meant for Gen Pop. It's meant more for, younger audience, younger demographic, and people that are more into lifting, heavier lifting and stuff. And they got bought up by private equity for, quite a bit of money. And now they're going to be able to scale much faster than they would have trying to do it on their own.
Because private equity has a bunch of money that they can throw at it. And
exactly. Right. Yeah. That's the whole idea behind private equity is taking an idea, helping it scale, and then selling it down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, take your practice, Peter, right? Imagine if you took your practice and you like super niched down on your services, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could charge much more for your services than you could if you're just helping the general population. But let's say you decide, you know what? I am only going to help billionaires that have imposter syndrome, that were fatherless, and whatever other kind of ailment. Right now, you've taken a funnel this big for general population, and you've niched it down to people that are billionaires with imposter syndrome, that are fatherless, and some other problem, right? Yeah, that funnel has now gotten very small, but now you can charge. You could like write your ticket what you could do to help those people, right? It's kind of like, have you ever watched Billions? The show Billions?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that show. So Wendy in that show was just that, right?
Yeah.
And she got paid like buku dollars.
Yeah. Wendy was the psychologist that helped the traders get their mind right.
Right. Yeah.
So that they could make more money.
They can make more money, but she made millions doing that. I got you thinking now, Peter, don't I?
Yeah.
You're going to change your whole business model.
I mean, the thing is you have to find someone, a niche population that's willing to pay for your services. Like a billionaire. But it's hard to get to that population. It's hard to, and if I have something valuable for that population, it's probably valuable for other populations too that are easier to get to.
I disagree.
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you.
Tell me. Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you. All right. So I think number 1, 6 degrees of separation. You are 6 people away from somebody that you're trying to find, right? And it's all about networking. So you start with 1 billionaire. All you need to do is start with 1 billionaire, and you could easily find a billionaire in your network. Could you not?
I mean, I'd probably be able to do that 1 or 2 degrees of separation away.
Okay, perfect. All right. So you could find that one person, you could help that person, and then what happens? You help that person, their life starts improving, and now your Peter Gold word of mouth starts spreading like wildfire. And now you've just built your audience off of that 1 or 2 interactions of helping people.
Right. And that goes to kind of like, it's not what you know, but who you know just as much as what you know.
Yeah.
If you do find a billionaire, or if you do find a super big celebrity and you help that person, and then that person refers you to their friends and validates your value.
Yeah.
That's a big part of business too.
Yeah. Oh, that to me is the largest part of business is your network, right? Yeah. I just recently watched the Martha Stewart documentary. Have you seen it?
I have not.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
Great documentary. But it basically talks to this point. Now, granted, she had an advantage because she was extremely attractive when she was younger. I mean, she's still attractive. She's 83 years old. She looks great for her age, right?
Yeah, for 83.
But, yeah. So when she was 19, she was very attractive. She met this young dude in college that was going to school to be, I don't know, an attorney or something like that. And then he ended up getting hooked up with this publishing house. And all she was doing was like, they would throw parties all the time in wherever they were at, like the Hamptons or wherever they were at. But anyways, she was very good at entertaining and she loved doing it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so people were telling her like, oh, you should write a book. Well, guess what? I'm married to somebody that's the vice president at a publishing house.
Mm-hmm.
So she wrote a book. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then that book like took off and grew up. And just from that one little thing, like her whole Martha Inc. just blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. From that one little thing. But it goes back to she had somebody that she knew that could take her and help her achieve that status or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's probably 10 or 20 or 100 people just like her that were just as attractive, that liked entertaining just as much, but they didn't know someone that was vice president at a publishing company, didn't write a book, and didn't become Martha Stewart.
Yeah. Hence the second rule of business is action, right? You could have a great idea, but if you just sit on it and you don't do anything with it, it's just an idea, you know? And you know, they always say the people that are the most successful are the ones that the time between idea and execution is very short. So it's speed of execution because money loves speed.
Money loves speed, but money also likes doing, you know, it takes time for an investment to mature.
Yeah.
So it's kind of double-edged sword there, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, well, I know we're running out of time, but I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, and this is
I got
related.
as much time as you want, Peter.
Oh, okay.
You're my boy.
Okay, all right, thanks, Bo. Like you seem like a very personable, easy to talk to, like transparent kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, and I don't know, for me, you know, like how we know each other is through a guy named Rich Summers.
Mm-hmm.
And he is also very transparent, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And that makes people, I think, a lot of times comfortable. Is that something that you have cultivated in yourself, or is that just something that you have always been that way?
You know, I have a lot of people that tell me that, but I don't feel that way about myself. I'm, especially the older I've gotten, the much more introverted I am. I mean, you probably noticed when we went to that mastermind, like I was very like those large crowds and trying to socialize, especially amongst a bunch of new people that I've never met in my life. It's extremely exhausting for me. Like my social battery was drained by the end of that trip. Like I was done. And it seems to be getting worse the older I get. But no, I mean, I've had people tell me that I'm very easy to talk to, and I do have people that are, you know, they open up to me fairly easily. I think I tie that to I'm a very curious person. I'm just intrigued about a lot of things in life, and so I ask a lot of questions, you know. And I think I don't know. This is just my assumption. You know, the first three letters of assumption is. I just think that, you know, when you start asking questions and you're trying to understand, you know, seek first yet to understand, that's kind of what probably makes those people feel safe. I don't know. That's just my theory, though. I don't know. But to me, I don't. The other side of that is my staff always tells me that I'm unapproachable because of my resting bitch face. So, I don't know, Peter. I don't know if I don't know.
Yeah. You've done, I mean, how much of your business has been sales? How much do you feel like you've had to sell?
Lots.
Yeah.
I mean, that's again, that's business 101. You have no business without sales. So you have to learn how to sell. And you know, you're kind of forced into those positions, even though you don't want to do them. You know?
How did you learn to sell?
Hired mentors. Yeah. Hired mentors, hired coaches, hired consultants. And don't get me wrong. Like the challenge that I run into nowadays, is that I'm doing so much that I can't focus on those type of problems in the business, the sales problems. So now it's gotten to a point where I've got to hire somebody to do it for me because I'm not in the day-to-day. If I was in the day-to-day, I could do it. But now that I'm working more at a 30,000 foot view of the business, especially the more I'm doing in different businesses, I can't be in the weeds of the business. I've got to be focused on the direction of the overall company and making sure that we're staying profitable overall. So now it gets to hiring the right people on the team to be able to do those things that I can't anymore.
And that is because you are kind of in charge.
Yeah.
If you were at a big corporation and you needed to sell, because sales it's one-on-one selling someone a gym membership, but it's also selling someone an idea that they want to, that you want to move forward in a company.
Yes, 100%. So if we take the gym as an example, right? There's three facets to selling in the gym, depending on your model. But the way my model works is somebody walks in interested in the gym. You first have to sell them on the gym, right? So you give them a tour, you find out what their pain points are, what brought them into the gym, what are they looking for in a gym, what are some of the amenities they want in a gym, what do they want to do in the gym? Because not everybody wants to do the same thing. So the biggest thing with sales is building rapport and listening and understanding what the prospect wants. I don't care what business it is. That's 100% what sales is. And then, so as you're touring them, you're building that rapport. You're asking those questions. You're finding out what their pain points are, their hot spots. You're helping them realize that these pain points are just a moment in time that can be solved with a few executable lessons, right? And so the second part of the sale is once you've sold the membership, the second part is for us is booking them into what we call a kickoff. And the kickoff is where we get even granular with their pain points. We sit them down, we understand what are you trying to achieve? Okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Well, I want to get in better shape. I want to be healthier. Great. Do you have any occasions that are coming up that you're looking to try and achieve this goal by? Yeah, I'm getting married. Oh, that's a huge one, right? Well, we really need to get you ready for this wedding. So now we understand, okay, they need to lose 20 pounds for their wedding. They want to look good on the altar. But most people, when they get a gym membership, they don't know what to do, right? I use this stat on my podcast all the time. 90% of the people that join a gym within the first 30 days stop going because they don't know what to do. And so our goal as gym employees, gym owners, the gym industry is to solve that problem. And so that's the point of a kickoff is we're going to help you solve that problem of how to lose 20 pounds in the next, say your wedding 6 months from now, in the next 6 months through proper training and proper nutrition, not dieting, proper nutrition, because people hate the word diet anymore. Because now they think, oh, I'm stuck in this one lane road, right? One way road. And so they come to the kickoff. We explain them what they've got to do to achieve their goal. We run them through a workout and we show them how they can get in and out in less than 45 minutes and be able to achieve their goal by just coming in 2 to 3 times a week, right? Now, the third point of the selling, right? You've sold the membership. You've sold them into coming to the kickoff. That's key, Peter, because 50% of the people that you get booked into, no, let me backtrack. 50% of the people that you sold a membership to will book a kickoff. Of those 50% that are booked, the industry standard, these are industry standards, only 50% will show. Okay.
So you're down to 25%.
You're down to 25%. So if you sell 10 memberships, only 2.5 people are actually going to sit in that chair and listen to what you have to offer. So now your funnel, like you said, is much smaller. Our goal obviously is to increase that, right? You need to be able to sell. Again, selling is kind of a derogatory word anymore, but really all selling is solving a problem, right? And so we sit them down in the kickoff, like I explained, and now we're going to sell them on personal training to help them achieve that goal. And a lot of people say, well, that's kind of shitty. That's, you're trying to upsell them. Well, we're providing a service that's going to help this person.
Yeah.
Let's look at it differently. If that same person went to the doctor, right, and wanted a pill, that person, most people would spend $1,000 on a month for a pill, right, that really doesn't benefit them that much. Yeah. Whereas if they come into the gym and actually work out and get, that dopamine kick from, it's dopamine, right? Am I saying right? Yeah. Dopamine kick from working out, they're going to feel way better than any pill they're going to take. Right. And then they're going to start to see results. They're going to start to see changes in their body, which is going to improve their mood. It's going to improve their health, and they're going to feel better, and they're going to want to show up much more often. Right. Well, we just won. Yeah.
Have you seen that a lot, that someone comes in, they attend the kickoff, they really are diligent about their workout program, and 6 months later, they're like a different person? Because it's hard to stay depressed. It's hard to stay stagnant if you're in really good shape.
Yes.
Mind-body connection,
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
It doesn't matter if you start with the mind or start with the body. If you're moving, if you're working towards changing things in your life, it's hard to stay stagnant in other places in your life.
I actually recently just said that to somebody today. I said, I think people's hardest challenge is the nutrition aspect of their health, right? Because most people don't know proper nutrition, and a lot of the food industry has misled people on what is healthy. And so people don't have the right understanding of proper nutrition. For many years, it was low fat, right? Everyone should be eating low amount of fat. Well, that was a push by the sugar industry, right? This has been proven. And then everyone was saying it's low carb. Well, carbs are the body's main source of energy. So yeah, you're going to lose weight instantly when you cut carbs out of your diet, but now you're not going to be functioning at your best performance or feel the best without carbs. So I think that once you find that balance of being able to eat right, eat healthy, and you start seeing changes from not only working out, but also eating healthy, now people are like, I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to that old version of me. I feel really good about myself now. Let's keep this going.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest part for anybody is once they walk out the gym doors is being able to maintain the healthy eating, because it's so easy just to run through a McDonald's or, pick up a bag of chips or whatever. I think that's the hardest part for people. And that's going to be one of my main pushes in life, is to educate people on eating right. Cause most people surprisingly actually undereat, rather than overeat. I mean, there's a lot that overeat. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Americans are extremely overweight, but there's a lot of people that don't eat enough of the right food.
Yeah. All right, Bo. Well, I'm going to have to let you go here because I got to get going.
Okay.
But I could talk to you. I mean, I've got so many more questions for you. I love you've got such a rich combination of business experience, personal development, physical development, because I know you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu too, among other things. I really appreciate you, man. And I really appreciate you coming on this show. And hopefully this has been something useful for the listeners. There's been something to take away that helps them or inspires them to live a life that they're happier in. That's the whole goal of the podcast. So
I hope
thanks for coming on, man. And hope to see you again in person sometime soon.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. He's Bo DePauli. I'm Peter Gold. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Welcome to Healing and Growing with me, your host, Peter Gold, PhD. Join me and renowned teachers, healers, and practitioners as we explore the realms of healing and growth. If you're seeking a better way in life or just curious about new ways to expand and enrich your life, you have come to the right place. Welcome to Healing and Growing with Peter Gold, PhD.